and welcome to another episode in our series of online webinars about Gilroy Gannon's business support programme during the COVID-19 crisis. My name is Jim Hunt, and I'm joined across the Northwest by Gilroy Gannon Business Advisory Director Michael Keane and Tax Director Desi Foley. Michael, can you start us off with a quick overview of the wage subsidy scheme and just what's it all about?
Good morning, everyone. The Temporary Wage Subsidy Scheme was introduced by the government to assist a link between employers and employees rather than having everybody on unemployment benefit. Some interesting stats on the scheme to date. There's over 45,000 employers registered. Over 280,000 employees have received a payment. And the reason why this scheme is so important is that there is already over 500,000 people receiving the pandemic unemployment benefit. Some other interesting stats on it is that 20% of employers account for 65% of the employees on the scheme. Just one other interesting thing that has been clarified is that the pandemic unemployment payment is now chargeable to income tax. So as well as the government supports scheme top up, which will also be taxed in due course next year, that has brought a bit of a level playing field to it. So the scheme basically encouraged employers who had previously laid off employees to bring them back onto the scheme. We're now in phase 1 of the scheme, and phase 2 will commence on the 4th of May when revenue will confirm the exact amount that is to be refunded to employees. Alternatively, some employers have laid off people. Or another option is to put employees on short time where they can receive a non-taxable benefit, but this is at an equivalent of euro 203 per week rather than the 350 pandemic payment. Just some other background on the scheme. The scheme is based on what they call average net weekly pay, which is calculated based on January and February's payroll, either 9 weekly payments or 2 monthly payments. The subsidy payment to employees is not subject currently to income tax, USC, employee PRSI or employer's PRSI. However, the top up for that employers make is subject to PAYE, USC. It's PRSI exempt for the employee and is at a reduced employer's PRSI of 0.5%. In relation to the eligibility of the employer, there has been a lot of discussion about employer eligibility where they have a significant amount of cash. Both the Minister, Pascal Donoghue, and Revenue have indicated that as long as employers satisfy the 25% reduction in turnover, even though they may have a significant amount of cash, they can avail of the scheme as long as they make best efforts to top up the employee's salary to pre-COVID-19 rates. The formal registration with Revenue, I think most employers have got to grips with that now. There has been a few phone calls in relation to employers who have not uploaded their bank details, but I think most employers have got through that. And I think most software providers have done various updates, and we've had various queries from people using different software. So if you have any issues on that, you can contact us and we can work through that with you. And there has been some changes made on the scheme effective from the 16th of April. And maybe, Desi, I might get you to talk through some of those.
Yeah, thanks, Michael. Hi, Jim. Yes, last week, the Minister announced some changes. Basically, I suppose there was a bit of an anomaly in the sense that, and it was touched on earlier, around the unemployment payment, which is €350. You could have had situations where people may have felt they would have been better off on receiving the unemployment payment rather than remaining in work and their pay being subsidised. So in the where a person's average net weekly pay doesn't exceed €412, the subsidy has been increased to 85%, which is basically €350. Also, if the employer wants to top it up to ensure that they get $350, even if that's greater than a 15% top up, they're not going to be penalised. When you go a wee bit further up the levels, between €412 and €500 of an average net weekly pay, there's a flat subsidy at $350. Again, that was trying to kind of combat the discrepancy between being on a subsidy or being on the unemployment payment. And then from €500 to 586, there's no change. It's still a 70% subsidy, subject to a cap of €410. So basically, the main kind of change there is on at the lower level, under the 412, the subsidies increased to 85%, and in the middle portion, 412 to 500, it's a flat rate of $350. Once you go over the 586, between the 586 but less than the 960, there's now I suppose a tapered approach, where the subsidy is $350, where the top up is by the employer is less than 60% of the average net weekly pay. But if that top up is between 60 and 80% of the average net weekly pay, the subsidy the employer gets is only $205. Greater than 80% of the average net weekly pay, if that's the top up by the employer, there is no subsidy. So it's actually in terms of the initial rules that came out in terms of this salary level of 586 to 960, employers need to look at it on a kind of case by case, employee by employee basis, because there could be some situations where they're not going to get as much of a subsidy as they had been up to now. So that needs to be kind of carefully looked at, say on a kind of case by case basis. The final change I'll just touch on briefly is there was an overall limit of anyone who was earning more than 76,000. They didn't qualify for the subsidy. If you've suffered a pay cut of 20% or more, and as a result your salary has come under the 76,000, there is some subsidies then available for the employers in that case.
Jim, can I just add that then, just on that, we would recommend that all employers, and especially corporates, companies, have or document their eligibility for the scheme. This might be a simple one-page minute of a director's meeting. We would also recommend that all employees are made aware of the employer entering the scheme, to ensure transparency and make the employees aware of it. And basically, we're available for anyone that has queries. I know there is going to be a lot of questions about the salary scale greater than 586. As Desi outlined, on the lower level, it's a wee bit more straightforward, but on the upper end of the scheme, the changes that the Minister has announced is going to lead to some anomalies in it, and employers should be very careful when they're making the relevant top-ups.
Thank you for that, Business Advisory Director Michael Keane and Tax Director Desi Foley, for those clarifications on the Temporary Wage Subsidy Scheme. Remember, you can download a PDF of our full overview of the scheme online from gilroygannon.com/COVID-19. And if you require any support, please contact Gilroy Gannon, albeit remotely. Bye for now.